Welcome to the My Opinion Podcast, a show that focuses on leadership, life, and love to empower women around the world to be the best versions of themselves. The My Opinion Podcast is a weekly show with Maya's Motivation Monday, focusing on leadership topics for women, and special edition episodes that feature guest interviews and current events. Now, all in her opinion, here is your host, Maya Roffler.
Hi guys, welcome back to Maya's Motivation Monday. Today I'm talking about a silencing leader. And what does it mean to be a silencing leader? Well, it means that you want everybody around you to be quiet and you really only care about your ideas. Which, if you guys listen to my other episodes, or if you know anything about leadership, or if you have common sense, you know that's not what a leader does, or what a good leader does. And you've probably heard this quote. It's one of my favorite quotes, but the biggest concern for any organization should be when their most passionate people become quiet. And that seems kind of obvious, but a lot of leaders don't realize that. When and why should you become concerned when your most motivated, passionate, most of the time your best employees become quiet? Well, in my opinion, I think immediately, the second they're becoming silent or distant or quiet. And the reason for that is because remember how much I've talked about in my posts on social media, in podcast episodes. Remember how I've talked about listening and how important listening is. I have a whole episode dedicated to how important listening is, and listening leaders are the best leaders. Listening is so important in general in life, but as a leader, because if you listen as a leader, you're willing to take feedback. You are going to get better because of it, but you also have empathy. And an empathetic leader is also the best leader, but you have to be able to listen and accept the information that you're hearing in order to be an empathetic leader and really put yourself in other people's shoes and receive that feedback to get better. And what you have to remember too about listening is everybody wants to be heard. So when you remember that everyone wants to be heard, and everyone wants to be heard for different reasons, but it doesn't really matter. We need to be heard because we're individuals and we all have different needs. And as a leader, it's your responsibility to listen and hear those needs. And when that stops, that's one of the number one reasons why our people stop talking, because you're not listening. And you only care about yourself and you become selfish. But I'm going to dive into some of the main reasons. That's the top reason in my opinion. But here are some of the additional and main reasons why your people, especially your truly passionate people, will go silent within your company. One of the first things is trust. So point blank, if trust is broken between you and your team or anybody at your company or anybody that works for you or your division or your branch or whatever you're leading, even if it's just a small team or you own your own company or you have an assistant, whatever it is, that individual will go silent very quickly because that bond is so important. Whatever you've done to break that trust, maybe you have promised them a raise and you can't give it to them anymore and you haven't explained why. There's a lack of trust that's broken there. Or you've promised something else to them. You've promised them, okay, yes, you can go on vacation if you complete this, XYZ, and they completed it, and then you're still not allowing them to go on vacation. There's a lot of different examples with trust, and I think that just really disrupts a relationship, and that will potentially have that person not only fall silent, but move on and look for a different job because they no longer have that bond with you. Consistency. When consistency is no longer there, remember this is one of the C's of leadership. I feel very passionately about this as well, enough to create an entire episode of a podcast about it. it's one of the important C's. And when consistency is lacking, this falls back to the trust. We as individuals look for consistency. We look for consistency in all relationships, not just romantic, not just friendships. We also look at consistency in partnerships, and this is in the workplace. So we look for that in our leaders. And when we start to see that consistency lacking or start to be erratic, I know for myself, when I've seen that happen, when I've worked for some leaders and the consistency stops and, I'm not receiving a consistent call, we don't have our weekly touch bases, or I'm seeing different behavior, I start to back away and I start to think, okay, this might not be the right fit for me anymore, because I thrive on consistency. I like that. I like that in my life. I have the discipline for myself. But what some people listening to this might think, oh, that's okay. I thrive off of something different every single day. Now, hang on a second. I do too. But in relationships, we need some kind of consistency. So don't fool yourself as a leader thinking that you can be inconsistent and just call whenever you want or do whatever you want and think that's okay. People need consistency. And when you deviate from that, you will lose the best people in your company. I promise you. They will fall silent. Dishonesty. This goes back to trust as well. So trust is kind of the mecca of all of this, as well as listening and communication. So dishonesty, hand in hand with trust. This is simple, guys. You lie, you don't tell the truth, you placate your employees with information that's, just not honest to keep them, or you kind of skirt tail around information. Company's in trouble, you're not telling them things. I mean, you gotta be honest. You gotta be straightforward, even with the hard stuff, because that's when you earn the respect of your employees. And I talk about this often. It doesn't mean you need to show them everything, because as a leader, it's your job to shield your team from some of the hardship. That's why you're a leader. You're taking on the hard stuff, but it's also your job as a leader to deliver the hard information and deal with it and help everybody get through it. But if you're dishonest about something, I know right away, I'm never going to trust you again as a leader. It would take a whole lot to earn that trust back. And unfortunately, in that kind of relationship, it's not as intimate as like a family relationship or a friendship, and there's probably not the years under the belt already. In that kind of relationships, you're probably not going to earn that trust back. That's a challenge right there. You're probably going to end up learning a lesson from that instead of earning that employee back. Already brought this up, but communication. When communication starts to be poor, or if it's always poor, communication, again, is one of those C's of leadership. Another important aspect, and it goes in with listening, but communication is also you effectively communicating what's going on. And if you were effectively communicating and then all of a sudden that stops, people lose trust. They don't know what's going on in the company, or they're getting information too late, or no information at all. That shows inconsistency. And this kind of all ties hand in hand, which moves you into selfishness. Selfish leaders will be left standing alone, because with all of these things tied together, your team will probably start to realize, okay, something is going on, or start to think something is going on, and they'll look at you and analyze you as a leader quietly or behind your back, which is not what you want. You want your team to be together and open and honest with you. But they'll start to think you're selfish, and they'll start to think, okay, wait, maybe the company's having some trouble and I'm going to be left behind, or my team members are, or maybe the money's really being set aside for our leader to make more money or get that bonus, or maybe their job's going to be saved and not ours. Whatever it is, there's a lot of different factors, but it can create a lot of anxiety back to that communication, but it makes the leader look very selfish, and nobody wants to work for someone who does not have that inclusive feeling for a team. And you respect your leader, and you you want your leader to win because you're winning when your leader is winning. And when you feel they're selfish, that goes to the wayside. You fall silent and you want to move on. Your leader always has a vision and a purpose for you, whether it's your company, your team, your division. And when that becomes convoluted, that's another one too. And that is not clear and it becomes muddled. That can confuse your team. That can confuse your people. This confuses your most passionate people because they joined the team probably because of you and or the vision or purpose. This is really important for like nonprofits or, very vision purpose-driven teams. I will use like a nonprofit, if you're supporting animals, if you're with like, say I volunteer for Humane Society. If you're with the Humane Society and you work for the Humane Society and then all of a sudden you're not really focusing on the animals and you're focusing on helping raise money instead for another cause, or you're raising money to make sure that the CEO is able to keep their job. Well, that's really not the point of the Humane Society. It's to ensure that the animals are being rehomed and taken care of and are healthy and their adoptions are up and going to great homes. So if we're pushing to raise money so that the CEO can keep their job during COVID and hard times, the purpose and vision is being pulled away. Shouldn't the CEO probably be taking a little bit of a pay cut and working on the vision and purpose? That shows selfishness. That's showing lack of the purpose and vision. So again, this can happen in any company. That's just an example that I'll use. It didn't really happen at the volunteer place that I go to, the Humane Society, but it's a good example and something to think about how that could all tie together. So for me, it's really important that we look at this because I see this all the time. It happened to me as an individual. I've worked again for some amazing leaders, which is what inspired me to become a leader and talk about this on a weekly, daily basis. But unfortunately, we all work for some leaders that should probably not be in a leadership position, or they think because they own a company or they run a division or they run whatever it is, their own business, they should be leaders, and that's not always the case. And they have to learn these lessons and go through this. And you just have to remember that when your most passionate employees become quiet, something is out of alignment. Something is out of alignment. So go back and check in. Check in with all of these things. Are you a listening leader? Are you communicating effectively? Do your employees trust you? Is there a reason for them not to trust you? Are you being consistent? Have you fallen off in some area? If you've been dishonest, you really need to reflect there. And look at your communication. Has that changed? Is it clear enough? Are you being selfish? And have you lost track of where you're going and the purpose and the vision of your company?
Thank you so much for listening to the My Opinion Podcast. You can catch up on past episodes on the My Opinion Podcast website at www.myopinionpodcast.com, as well as read the My Opinion blog and contact Maya directly with your questions. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at My Opinion Podcast and Maya Roffler. We'll see you back here next week.